Welcome to the People's Guild. If you are invested in Splinterlands or if you are just curious about Splinterlands, then this podcast is for you. And if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. We've got another week, another episode, and another fantastic guest spot today. You've probably been derailed in your route to the podium in your tournament journeys by this man. He's known in the community as a tactician. He's a master of units that dates back to his Total Annihilation game days from the, I guess late 90s, mid 90s. We'll hear more about that here in a little bit. But one of the first guys to kind of roll out the welcome wagon to Wasco and I when we joined up with YGG a couple of weeks ago. We certainly appreciate the immediate hospitality and warm welcome. So, it's good to finally get you on. And without further ado, we got UnitMaster for you guys. So what's up, UnitMaster? Thanks for stopping in.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been looking forward to getting on with you guys. I've been listening to a lot of your episodes, and I really, it's been great interacting with you in the YGG brawlers. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. No, I've personally really been looking forward to this. I could just chat tactics all day, and we're going to get into that soon enough. But yeah, I just want to replicate what Bijangles just said as well. Like, we just arrived in YGG, and you helped us make that transition seamlessly. So yeah, you just kind of felt like you went out of your way just to kind of like help us out. And yeah, fortunately we managed, I can't remember how we managed to start talking tactics, but this thing has been going on for the past 4 or 5 weeks since we've been in YGG. So yeah, I really appreciate that. So just first off, I would just like to find out how you found out about YGG and your role in YGG.
Sure. I started out last September, October, just getting into, I want to study and learn more about crypto and NFTs and what's going on, because it was just at the height, everything was booming. And, I didn't really know the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these other coins. And so I started listening to these podcasts, and the Tim Ferriss podcast is probably one of my favorites. And so he had an episode with Naval Ravikant, and it's 2 or 3 hour podcast episode, and just going through it. And they were just going through, exactly what a lot of the details on what is Ethereum, how do these electronic smart contracts work, and how do NFTs work, and how they're interchangeable Legos pretty much. And that whole podcast just blew my mind. And when I just saw that, I knew, okay, this is going to be the future. And in that podcast, they talked about play to earn gaming. They talked about Axie Infinity, and they brought up YGG. And that was the first time I ever heard of YGG. And so that's when I became familiar with the name. I didn't know much about it. I Googled it a little bit, did some research on it. And so after the podcast, I was sending the link to all my friends. Like, you got to listen to this. This thing is like the next. It's not just people buying pictures. Like, this is going to change gaming. It's going to change everything. And so I started looking into play to earn games, and I saw all these lists. And I first looked at Axie Infinity, and I think at the time you had to buy like 3 Axies, and it was, I don't know, 60 or $80 a piece. I'm like, I'm not going to dive in that deep yet. And so I found this Splinterlands, and it's $10 to buy the spell book. And hey, I can start with PayPal. I knew nothing about buying crypto or crypto wallets or anything. And so I talked to my wife, hey, what do you think about giving this a shot? And so that's pretty much where my journey started, in kind of getting into Splinterlands, play to earn gaming, kind of learning about crypto. And from there, I was in a guild for a couple of months. Really nice guild, a lot of really nice people, good interaction. But I was looking for something a little more involved, a little more intense. If I do something, I kind of go all the way down the rabbit hole. And so just scanning Reddit, and there was a post from Nameless recruiting for the YGG Brawlers, and so immediate name recognition of the YGG, and I thought, oh, this is awesome, a chance to get involved with YGG, and so jumped in, and I want to say maybe around March. I don't remember the exact join date, but jumped in and just blown away by the community, the leadership, the just the way they're tracking brawl statistics and just everything from the top down. And so that's kind of how I got involved in YGG, was through a Tim Ferriss podcast and a Reddit post.
What a cool full circle journey, man. And it's funny that you use the word intense as the adjective of choice to describe YGG and Brawlers. So Waskel and I, we were kind of partnered up in the Phoenix organization, Phoenix Arcade, and shout out to those guys. They were a great kind of first guild for us to hop onto and kind of experience the world of guilds and brawling and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think we kind of felt a similar calling to something that was perhaps a little bit more next level. And holy moly, man, YGG, the Brawlers group, it is a tightly run ship. I mean, I had, to be fair, I had a little bit of a poor showing in my most recent brawl, but 3 and 4, and I talked to Waskel as soon as I saw that. I was like, oh man, I'm sitting next week for sure. No questions asked. And I knew it was coming. It was coming. It came. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun hopping into YGG. So I appreciate you kind of sharing that insight. And I would love to hear more about YGG and kind of the claim to fame that they had on the Tim Ferriss show. So it wasn't until much later, after I started recognizing YGG guys kind of finishing top 10 every tournament, and Splinterfest I think was perhaps the crowning jewel, right? Both champs were YGG guys at the time. I think they've since moved elsewhere, but it wasn't until I saw that recognition, or I should say recognized YGG all over the place in Splinterlands, that I kind of took a step back and looked at YGG from the bird's eye view, and YGG is across a whole slew of play to earn games. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, they've got investments in several different games all across the board. I honestly don't know a ton about the higher up YGG and what all games they're invested in. Most of my knowledge is in the YGG Splinterlands Alliance, but yeah, they're a big organization.
Your journey is kind of quite similar to mine, actually. I was just similar. I kind of was into kind of investing a little bit before that, but then NFTs just kind of struck a chord somewhere, and then I started searching, and Axis Infinity was the game I was looking into. But yeah, it was a lot more expensive. I think like it was looking close to like $1,000 when I first started. So I think that was just one of the things that definitely appealed to me about Splinterlands, was just the easy access to kind of start up. But yeah, it kind of when you, as you said, you mentioned like intense as well, and like I kind of get the feeling like when you kind of like speaking to you really focused on the strategy elements, right? So like, has that always been a case for you in like the games before you hit Splinterlands?
Yeah, I would say, I've grown up playing, as a kid, playing a lot of chess and really enjoying chess. And then as I got into, out of college, I spent a lot of time playing, online poker, and it's a lot of strategy games before the Black Friday, they called it, when all the US poker got shut down. But yeah, so strategy games is something, even on weekends, we'll get together with friends and play board games and all kinds of different strategy games. I do find just thinking about tactics and strategy in gaming and in life, in business, I just find it really interesting.
What board games are you interested in? Because I'm a bit of a board gamer as well.
So we've got some friends that every time we go over there, they bought 2 or 3 new games. But the ones that I really So the gateway one I would say would be Settlers of Catan, and
Mm.
then pretty quickly moved on from that into some deck building games like Dominion and a lot of those expansions. There's one called Tapestry, Architects, a lot
Oh,
of different. They call them like worker placement games, things like that. So those kind of games.
yeah. Yeah, I'm big. I really like Memoir 44. I don't know if you played that game before.
No, I haven't.
Just it kind of reenacts battles from World War II.
Oh
So
wow.
so it's actually historically correct, and you just it's just like you're reenacting the battle, so you can change the course of history as you will.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, big fan of Catan. Here in a couple months, I'm fixing to move down to Tainan and where Waskel's at, and hopefully we can orchestrate some. Number one, a little bit of a next level to the podcast. Number two, I can flex my own unit mastery in the world of Catan. I'm a big fan of that game. It's fantastic. So recently we've had the advent of the Rooney. We got a little bit of some big news that has kind of shaken up the Splinterlands community a little bit. Everybody was kind of operating under the assumption that Rooney component swapping was going to be kind of the next phase of Rooney, and folks were kind of stacking Rooney for individual pieces and looking to do a little quid pro quo between individual units and be left with an equal number of units that you entered that swapping with. However, yesterday, 2 days ago, we got a little bit of a news flash from the squad over at Splinterlands, and reconstruction by way of burning a Rooney unit is evidently the way forward. What are your initial thoughts on that, UnitMaster? What were you kind of purchasing a few of floor Roonies for individual pieces, planning on constructing one master Rooney, or what was your game plan and what was your reaction?
So I sat out the original minting, kind of sat out from the sidelines and just kind of waited, and then they locked in the price, the 0.38 ETH, and then ETH went up right away, so it was like immediately going to be, I think, like $600 or something to mint one. So I'm pretty sure I wanted to get one because I knew there was going to be some good perks, but I wanted to kind of see how the minting played out and just kind of sit back and watch. I didn't think all 6,500 were going to sell out, so I thought there might be some time. And I personally didn't care too much about what mine looked like. I was mostly like, hey, I'm going to want a Rooney for the perks because I know, Splinterlands, Aggie and Matt, they've got a track record of rewarding early investors and talking, making promises that, hey, we're gonna reward people that invest in these items. We're gonna make it worth your while, such as even titles back in the day. And so I have a high level of confidence that they're going to highly reward those of us that are able to get an early Rooney. And so when I saw that announcement that, hey, they're going to be burning Roonies to combine, having not bought one yet, I thought this is awesome because they're going to be even that much more scarce if people do decide to burn them. So I like FOMO bought one right away. I just went on, bought the floor model. It was actually decent looking. And so for me, I get why like some people are, maybe upset because the thought was, hey, we're going to be able to swap parts. I know there's several people in YGG that have bought, four or more Roonies, thinking about swapping parts. And I even saw Matt had made the post that, yeah, we kind of screwed up in the announcement. That wasn't our intention for it to be swapping. So yeah, I think in the long run, it's going to be more beneficial for Rooney holders. I like the announcements that they talked about, potential guild staking, talking about, doing the achievements with them. So as you do possibly achievements with your Rooney, it's going to get different badges or other things. So I think a lot of the people that are upset, or I can understand if I had bought if I had bought a bunch of them thinking I was going to be able to combine parts and make a super Rooney, I'd probably be, pretty upset too. But I don't, it's not a big impact for me personally. I think a few years from now, they're all going to be real valuable and it's going to be water under the bridge.
I think number one, congratulations for not FOMOing in like like the rest of us. Yeah, that was interesting. Like you kind of really didn't think they would sell because if you listen to most people, that wasn't the case, right? Like the consensus was these things are going to just fly out in seconds.
Yeah, I think there was mixed feelings. Some people thought they were going to go in seconds. I know, there were maybe some doubters that weren't sure. I really wasn't real sure, but when I saw the early minting, the whitelist minting, and seeing that okay, there people are minting a bunch of these and they're already dumping ones they don't maybe love how they look, or that there's already ones you can buy below mint price during whitelist period. That's what kind of made me think, okay, maybe these won't fly off the shelf because another several thousand is quite a bit to go through. And with ETH going up after they locked it in, now it's even higher than people might have expected. So I was willing to take the risk that hey, if they do sell out and there's none available, hey, maybe I just end up not getting one. For me, I felt like to put in $600 to get one, probably the money could go. I could utilize that money in better ways.
Yeah, I think for me as well. Like personally, I've only got one, but yeah, I am just a little bit concerned that the team would suddenly come out with something like this, and I just wonder what the long term implications are because of this. Because like for example, maybe someone doesn't have a lot of money and they just have invested X amount in the Rooney, and they've invested it because they believe that they could switch and swap, right? It's like, say if you go and buy a car and then you give them money, and then when you go and pick it up, there's only 3 wheels on the car. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, we thought we might be best, but I don't know. I just wonder, like, what do you think people are gonna be a bit more hesitant about future projects if they have done this sort of thing before?
I think some people made some assumptions because if you looked at the white paper, it said, hey, component swapping. It didn't give a lot of details. So even though Matt did say, yeah, we made a mistake, we didn't want to use those exact words. Still, the people that are spending, several $1,000s if they're buying, 3, 4, 5 of these things, probably made a few assumptions. Hey, this is how we think component swapping is working. I also think that probably more of like a trader mentality. So in my investments, like in stocks or in companies, I kind of, I look up to like Warren Buffett, investors like that, hey, I'm buying pieces of a company and I'm probably never going to sell. Versus I think crypto, and especially even among Splinterlands, there's a lot of people that may be more of a trader mentality. So you're looking, by the minute, by the day, by the week, like how's my assets going up or down? And so I could see people with maybe the trader mentality being more concerned in the next, few months. But I think also people have a short memory span on those kind of things. And so the next project that comes out, I think people are going to see, one, how Rooney holders are being rewarded, whatever that may be, and see the benefits of it. And I think I'm sure there'll be a percentage that are kind of upset or disappointed. But I think with the short memory a lot of people have, I don't think it will be that big a deal, a year from now.
That's a really great perspective. Is the trader mentality versus I'm taking an ownership perspective. Just to kind of backtrack for a quick second before we move forward, I feel like my personal opinion is, I was glad to see that Matt kind of came out and took accountability for the miscommunication there. But I think it's a significant lesson learned for the Splinterlands team, especially considering the amount of hype and excitement that was built around Rooney. there were tons of videos. You name a content creator, he or she dropped content about component swapping being part of the future of their personal plans and plans for the community with Rooney. And even last week we had Cryptomancer on, and he was referencing component swapping by that phrase and expecting. It sounded to me like he was under the assumption that you'd be able to swap tit for tat and be left with two Rooneys on the other side of that. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right with the short memory span. It's all about what have you done for me lately, right? And I think come the next big piece, whether that's Rebellion in 6 months from now, I'm sure we'll get some big updates between now and then. But yeah, we'll forget about this, especially once we start rolling into some real Rooney utility, which is something that I kind of want to pick your brain on. And what are your thoughts, UnitMaster? You were in attendance at the Splinterfest about a month ago. I would love to see, personally speaking, some in-person utility come from the team for rewarding Rooney holders. What are your thoughts on that? Would you hope for a VIP bar line and pancake bar with Aggie as part of your Rooney pass?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think they're for sure going to do things like that. I mean, they've alluded to several town halls of this being kind of the entry piece, the first piece of something even more they want to build out. And so, yeah, I'm super excited. I think we've seen how some of these whitelists and some of these sales things that people really, really want to buy that are selling out in seconds and minutes. And I think, again, this could be making an assumption, but there's been a lot of talk and speculation that, hey, having a Rooney might give you a guaranteed whitelist spot on future buys. Who knows what kind of land utility it will have, or in-person events, discounts on future buy. There's no telling. I think the opportunities are limitless for the ways that they might decide to reward holders of this. But we've seen what they've done with how they rewarded all the early investors during the SPS airdrop, right? If you're holding alpha cards, if you're holding a title, and now they're rewarding SPS holders with the Genesis League token drops. I think they've proven their integrity and that they're in this to help the people and the community and kind of share the wealth. So I don't fault them for, if you've been in leadership or management, we're constantly making decisions and, making mistakes or dumb calls or overlooking something. And so I'm not concerned about, okay, we made a mistake on something like that when I don't see it as impacting their integrity or something that was done maliciously. And I'm looking forward to future things that they're going to roll out with the Rooneys.
Yeah, not to mention you reference those early adopters being rewarded heavily and substantially, significantly over the years. And I think one that immediately comes to my mind is land. I've heard many of the big landholders essentially come out and say that their investment has been paid back in full and then some throughout the SPS airdrop. And now that we're getting, airdropped additional SPS for continuing to hold land, who knows what that rewarding from the team is going to look like. But yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head as far as the team is. They've set the bar for themselves to, from the past and looking forward to reward those early adopters. So it'll be interesting to see what does that reward look like. From a tactician standpoint, strategist standpoint, where in your lineup, UnitMaster, if at all, is a good fit for Rooney? What do you kind of see him as, or her, as a card in your lineup?
It looks like the speed element of this game is just getting really crazy with the Yasek summoner having the +2 speed. Kitty's still there, and now you've got the Coral Lurker, which has got taunt and dodge and phase. I think this True Strike is going to be really where where it comes in, where you set it up in a lineup. Maybe you're expecting someone to play Lurker or Kitty Almo combo, something that's really hard to hit, and you're going to throw this guy in there, maybe with somebody like Jacek that's got the +2 speed. I think it's a 1 speed for the Rooney. So something where you can count on, okay, it's going to hit hard and deal damage on all these fast moving units. So that's kind of where I see it playing in, some sort of lineup with, especially if you play Jacek and then maybe the Tusk the wide that's got the Inspire, so it gives a little extra damage, and then you've got the piercing. So I think at max level that will be doing 6 or 7 damage, plus piercing plus true strike. So that's where I'm kind of seeing it play in. And then I don't remember all the stats of what the health is and everything, but that's kind of the big thing that I'm seeing is I think true strike is going to be more and more critical to have as we get more and more just speed builds. And I wouldn't be surprised to see, one of the other legendary summoners either have another speed increase or a negative speed to kind of offset all these fast builds that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think from everything you just said and Ben you just said as well, it just feels that if you like take this game seriously or want to be invested in this game long term, I think Rooney's just feels like a must-have, right? Because there's going to be so much that you can literally choose what you want it to be, right? Do you want it to be a card? Do you want it to be sitting on your land? Like if you've got a super Rooney like they have brought out yesterday, you're going to have a proper bad boy on your deck, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Rooney is going to be, the status symbol of Splinterlands. The way we now, look up to all these guys with the gold foil alpha decks and these guys with, Max Yoda and Max Kitty, stuff like that. I think people that are hopping into the game a few years from now, they're going to be like, wow, oh, you're a Rooney holder. And I think it's going to be a bigger deal. For me, probably more so I forgot it had the reflection shield too. So that's huge too. But for me, just more than the actual use of the card in battles it's like an all access pass to the things that they've got coming up. So I do think it is going to have its uses in game, but I was more excited about how they're going to reward Rooney holders than I was about, using it in battle.
Yeah, I think I was under, no doubt that they were going to come out with some great utility for Rooney. So, and I just want to talk quickly about you mentioned it in Discord I saw the other day as well about how you're not too worried about the current price of, say, for example, SPS. You're more in it for the long term. So what's your strategy with regards to SPS?
So I'm stacking everything that I can. I'm stacking SPS. I'm stacking the Genesis League airdrops that we're getting. I'm holding DEC. I haven't spent one DEC since I joined the game. I've just been stacking it. Whenever I buy something, I just bring in fiat. Because I think, looking at this game, 5-10 years from now, if the game takes off and is successful, I think it's going to be enormous with land coming out and boss battles and, Aggie talking about wanting to have raids and, raids with your cards where you're getting different armor or things. So I think the game that we're seeing now is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And if this, I think this is either going to go just through the roof or just fail completely. I don't really see a middle ground. I just think it's going to be completely huge. I don't really see a way it's going to fail. I think, at some point, hopefully we'll start getting in sponsors. I think when you get outside money coming, that's one of the ways, sports make so much money. It's all these billion-dollar, advertisements and TV contracts. And, at Splinterfest, they talked about the Genesis League players those cards you're going to be able to attach like a shoe NFT or a shirt NFT to it, and they're going to be talking to these you might get Nike or Adidas comes in and says, hey, we want to sponsor a Genesis League shoe NFT. And so I think we're just still in such of the early stages of this that I'm just stacking everything. I don't really care about the price point of most of the stuff. I'm not worried if it's going up or down from day to day, because I think that when you listen to, I listen to Aggie on your podcast even, and hearing his story, and it reminds me of like a Steve Jobs and Wozniak starting Apple. These guys, they started this business to change the world, and with a mission, not, hey, let me find a way to make money and go start this project. And I think if you look at a lot of the most successful entrepreneurs, at least of our time, your Elon Musk, your Steve Jobs, they started with a vision. And that's what I see with Aggie and Matt. They had a vision that, hey, we want to bring crypto to the masses and all the benefits that come with that. And so that's what makes me really excited about this project, is that they, if you take them at their word at face value, they're looking to give back to the owners, give back to the people, and they're looking to, build an entire ecosystem where the money goes to, those of us that are stakeholders in the system, rather than the Web 2 model, which is, Instagram, Twitter, Google, they own the content, they get all the ad revenue, all the money goes to them. So I think again, going back to the start of our podcast, talking about the Tim Ferriss episode and just the whole models they discussed in there. I think Splinterlands is following that, and it's really going to change the way people look at things.
Fantastic. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're just at the tip of the iceberg, and I think it's really difficult to kind of put on the glasses of somebody like an Aggie or like a Yaba and see 12 months into the future, what is this game going to look like? Obviously, we're kind of outsiders looking in and or attempting to look in. But some of the aspects of the game that you just mentioned, the raids, the boss fights, Cryptomancer was alluding to something similar to kind of an escape room sort of challenge within lands. And all of that sounds so cool. And it feels like there's a little something for everybody. Like what type of gamer are you? Okay, well, the Splinterlands universe has that. It's just a matter of kind of overcoming these speed bumps and growing pains en route to that stuff. And, thinking about the Genesis League sports, oh man, the sky's the limit, right? If we could get somebody like a Red Bull to come in and advertise on the stadiums, or somebody like an Under Armour to come in and bring, I think Under Armour is still the primary sponsor of somebody like Tottenham. Wasco, is that right? You happen to know? Yeah. If they could bring in, somebody like a Tottenham to, as like maybe a guest team within GLG, or, who knows? All it's going to take is really one big mover to come in, and all of a sudden everybody's going to have eyeballs on that. And, it's a matter of going exponential overnight. I feel, so, it's great to kind of hear your perspective and see that we're all kind of in cahoots and sharing the same kind of long-term vision for where this game could go. And one more footnote, man. I cannot believe what you just said. I haven't spent a single DEC since I came into this game, man. I'm tempted to ask you what your balance is, but we can talk about that off air, man. It's got to be.
I have used some DEC for rentals. I have to say that, but as far as like buying any cards, I haven't. So.
Is Lux Vega on your radar? You've got Premier access to that, don't you?
Yeah, I've got the discount code from Splinterfest, and I think we get another $350 off with vouchers, so it's going to cost me around $350. And one of our guild mates in YGG, I hit him up like, I don't know, two weeks ago. I said, hey, can I buy some DEC for fiat? So I PayPal'd him $700, and he sent me like a little over like 1.1 million DEC, because I thought it was going to be market rate, and I figured, well, once they announce it, it's going to go way up. So I think it was like 6.63 is what I was what he sold the DEC to me at. So it's went way up since then. I turned a bunch of it into I got all the vouchers I need. I got the 350 vouchers. I still got just under 1 million DEC left. I think I'm only going to need 350,000 of the DEC. So I'll have a bunch left over now to put into liquidity pools or convert to SPS or something.
Oh, that was a savvy play, man. Nice move.
Yeah, it worked out. You never know if it's going to go up and down, but I just figured a lot of people were going to be trying to grab some to at least get Lux Vega. So yeah, it worked out. It worked out good.
So you mentioned something about this game can be either success or it will fail. So I'm just I've been thinking this past week because Aftersound alluded to this in one of his posts I saw about we don't necessarily need more players. We just kind of need maybe just things within the game to be working correctly. So I'm just wondering, I've just been thinking since I read that, like, do you think we have the players already in the game to keep it being a great game and a success the way it is?
I think it can be successful with the current player base, but it's not going to be huge with the current player base. I think, and I don't think it's going to get huge until we get land and get boss fights and raids and maybe tower defense gets more popular. I think, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, I think it's going to blow up. Right now, everyone talks about on Discord, the new user experience is kind of pretty terrible. Once in a while, if on my alt account, I'll play a couple of bronze matches and it's horrible. I think the team acknowledged that, hey, it's not a good, it's not the best new user experience. We need tutorials. So they know it's needed, but they're trying to get all these key pieces in place so that when they go out and start really building to the masses, that it's going to be, it's going to have the foundation set up. And that's when I think it will really get big. But I think right now the player base is relatively small. I think it's sustainable, but I don't think it's not going to get huge at the current player base.
Yeah. So you mentioned about that new player experience, but like compared to when you started playing the game, like, do you think it has improved and what was it that just pulled you into the game and kept you plugging away?
I think it was the strategy aspect of it, like getting in, this is really interesting, and reading these articles. So I think like my first buy was, someone was like, oh, you got to have a Furious Chicken. So I think I bought, a Furious Chicken, a Jin O'Shanis, Venari Wavesmith. And I'm just like, okay, if this is what it takes to be competitive, that's what I'm going to grab. So I just started buying, okay, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this. And at the time they were airdropping, SPS. So I was looking at like, okay, I'm buying this card, but I'm also going to start getting, airdropped points, for SPS too. And so for me, it was just, okay, I really like the game and I believe in the model, and I'm just going to do what it takes to kind of move ahead. And, I have a pretty good job, so I can, spend, some cash here and there to put money in. And I'm not, I didn't approach it with, hey, let me spend $10 and I'm going to get rich. I'm not looking at, when Lambo, I'm not expecting to become a billionaire from the game, but I do think the concept is incredible. I think there's some amazing opportunity there. But for me, that was kind of the new user experience, and really the gate was the collection power. So it was pretty quickly with buying, a handful of cards, maybe $100 worth of cards, it pretty quickly is not too tough to get close to the silver ranking. It's just, okay, how do I rent collection powered? What are the cheap cards to buy? But now, even with like a full deck of a lot of legendaries, a lot of cards, if I jump into bronze, it's brutal because you're playing against these optimized bots that have perfect lineups, and if you don't know exactly what card to play at exactly what splinter and what mana level, it's just kind of a rock, paper, scissors. And it's okay, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. So yeah, from November, what it was like in bronze till now, it's quite a bit tougher in my opinion.
But you bring up a few interesting points there. But before we start to dive into that stuff, I quickly want to point out number one, I think Furious Chicken was one of my first buys. Also, when that Lambo arrives, I think it's safe to say that in your neck of the woods there will be a fresh new Lambo driving around with a big wrap of a Furious Chicken on it.
Nice, yeah, that'd be cool.
And thinking kind of longer term with SPS, in my opinion, my experience, I feel like the best, obviously outside of buying the dip, the best way to accumulate that SPS is via tournaments and soon to be via brawl. So I think not this brawl, but the subsequent brawl will see the inaugural SPS reward be introduced into brawl rewards, which I think the three of us are obviously excited about. But tournaments, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think especially with modern tournaments in mind, what is kind of some good for our listeners out there, some good kind of general strategy to walk into a tournament with in their pocket and in their mind?
Yeah, I think for a new player or someone just getting into tournaments, I think the best place to start is really focus on, whatever set is the current set, right? So right now it's Chaos Legion. And so I think the best way for a new player to be competitive and do well in tournaments is master the Chaos Legion cards. There's a lot of I think they're the Scarred Hand tournaments that are just Chaos Legion only. They've recently introduced Rift Watchers with it, which is part of Chaos Legion. But there's enough cards there to give some strategy, but there's not so many that you can't really learn all the cards and what they all do. And so that's kind of what I've kind of done is just I want to be, quote unquote, master the Chaos Legion deck. I mean, those are usually the tournaments that I've done the best in, typically are Chaos Legion. And then even from there, I would break it down further and to try to learn all these wild cards and Untamed and, every iteration of every card for all these different leagues. It's a lot. And I would narrow it down to let me focus on one or two splinters. And if you're a newer player, if you're in bronze or silver, it's, for me and most people you talk to, it's going to be water and earth with the magic. And so kind of my journey was just really narrow down. Let me get mastery of all the Chaos Legion cards. Let me really focus on the water deck, right? So I think the water is by far the strongest deck. You can play it in bronze all the way up to diamond. I haven't quite got into champion yet, but just speaking from experience, all through those leagues, you can play water deck in just about any rule set, any combo. It's got counters for things. So I think if I was giving advice to a brand new player, like get in, master Chaos Legion and focus on the water deck and just learn that. Maybe from there you can add to that, hey, learn the earth deck, learn some of these others. And then from there, even within that, you need to find, a couple of rule sets that you just know, okay, hey, if this rule set comes up, I know exactly what's the optimum to play, right? Like the old, if you get the 17 mana poison rule set, it's Llama Kron, right? Now that's even changed a little bit. But so that's what I would suggest is focus on master a deck, master one or two splinters, and master a couple of mana sets, right? So maybe I think we're going to talk later about, some of the 12 to 15 mana, but maybe get really good at the 12 mana, maybe the 99 mana. But you start mastering those and then you can add some variation to it. But those middle mana ranges, you start getting anywhere, say 20 to 60, and there's so many variations, so many combinations, unless you have, all the legendary summoners from Untamed, just everything. It's massively overwhelming and it gets pretty complicated versus really drilling down on kind of those concepts we just talked about. So that'd kind of be my first advice for tournaments. And then from there, it's watch the top leaderboards, watch what some of these best players. That's the great thing about crypto is you can look at anybody's account of these top tournament players. Look what cards are they playing? What splinters are they using a lot? And are they renting cards? Are they owning cards? So that would be kind of my advice for kind of starting out in tournaments. And then, I don't know if you want me to keep going and we can talk more about that, or if you had any follow up.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so typically what I like to do is, if the ideal situation for me is, I want to be really well rested. So I don't want to be doing it, when I'm tired or just not really wanting to put the effort in. And the tournaments that I've done the best in, and I'll kind of focus on Chaos Legion because I think it's a small enough deck that it's kind of easy to have a lot of the cards, memorized. But I'll start with, I'll take a look at my opponent. Okay, what's his name? What's his guild? What's his collection power? And that will kind of tell me what type of player I might be looking at, right? If a guy's at 500,000 or a million collection power compared to 100,000 collection power, it could be a totally different mindset that you're facing. And I just assume, like in a Chaos Legion tournament, everybody's going to have every card. So going into that, I'll look at, okay, who am I playing, and then I'll just hit that next battle. And as soon as it pops up, I'm looking at, okay, what's the rule set? What's the mana? And what's the first lineup that makes sense to me? And I'll plug in a lineup, and I'll look at it. Okay, now what lineup will beat this, right? So then I'll start going through my head. Okay, so I sent you a battle link the other day. It was a 12 mana. I think there was like water, dragon, and maybe one other summoner. It was a 12 mana poison. So my first thought was, okay, I want the healer. So I want Zenith Monk. I need to cleanse him. So I need to go water, and I need the I think it's the water nymph. And so I'm like, okay, there's my 12 mana. I'm going to cleanse this guy and I'm going to heal him. So I'm good to go. And so I stop and I go, okay, what beats this? So like, well, if someone came at me with, if they played the Zenith Monk and if I threw two archers in here, right? The Zenith Archer and Igor. So now I'm doing, depending on what league, if you're in gold or diamond, now I'm doing 4 or 5 damage with those archers plus the 2 from Zenith Monk. So I'm going, okay, that's going to beat this lineup of my Zenith Monk and my cleanse. So then I look at, okay, so here's the counter to that. Now, is there anything I can think of in the available splinters? What could beat this? Is there a sneak attack? So in that case, no, because there's not really many sneak cards in Chaos Legion. And in the splinters that were available, I think it might have been Death, so maybe they could have played Silent Shaw, but then they wouldn't have had enough mana to go up front, right? So without going all the way down the rabbit trail in that specific lineup, I looked at it and said, okay, I think the Zenith Monk plus 2 archers with no cleanse, I don't think that's a beatable lineup. So I hit start, and then sure enough, my opponent played Zenith Monk and the Water Nymph with the cleanse, because that's what makes sense. And so the way it played out, I won the match. And that's when I'm doing my best at tournaments. I'm able to think clearly, and I can pop in the lineup. And sometimes I'll put like 2 or 3 lineups together where I'll do my lineup, and then I have two monitors, so I'll screenshot it. I'll put it on one. And I'll go, okay, what beats this? And I'll put up the next lineup, and I'll go, okay, now what beats this? And sometimes it'll be, it could be 2 or 3 iterations. And especially if you're playing against, say, somebody that's got, 1 million collection power, 500 collection power, right? They're not going to be playing the obvious rule set, right? If it's a heavy armor rule set, so obviously your level 1 thinking is, okay, I'm going to go heavy magic to bypass all this armor. And so if you're playing a strong player, they're going to be going, okay, well, level 1 thinker is playing magic, so I'm going to counter magic, right? So they're going to be playing maybe Grandmaster Wraith or something like that, but they're going to be totally unprepared for a heavy melee attack. So I'll go, if it's someone with, say, a lot of collection power, I know that, okay, they're at least thinking level 2, then I'm going to go, what's the best attack for someone that's playing anti-magic? And that would be something like maybe Yasek with the Pierce and just heavy melee damage. So throw in Tusk the Wide, somebody, maybe who's the Epic Fire.
Forgotten one.
Yeah, Forgotten One, right? So Forgotten One at tank, because he's expecting anti-magic. He's expecting magic, so he's not going to be throwing magic. So I'm going to put in Forgotten One with the piercing. I'm going to put maybe the enraged guy with reach right behind him, and then I'll put maybe Tusk the Wide in the middle to increase everybody's attack, and maybe the Tenyi striker in the back, and then maybe somebody with ranged, or maybe I'll still throw in maybe one magic guy or something. Now sometimes that works. Sometimes you end up, totally overthinking yourself, and you're like, man, I should have just played, it's a heavy shield. I should have just played magic, right? And so that's kind of the things that you can, kind of the things that I'll do as I'm going through when I'm really at my best, is I'll look through those concepts and try to combine them all into, do I want to play the level 1, the level 2 thinking, or the level 3? And if there's enough room to do that kind of thing.
Oh man, I love hearing you pick this stuff apart, dude. And next time I come across you in the tournament, you're planning for level 2, I'm going level 1.
There you go.
And sometimes it's the obvious one that is the best play, right? And that's what's so great about this game. Like, is he planning to counter my attack, or is he planning to go all out attack, or is this person planning to counter my counter? So it's just all this level of complexity. It sounds like the best solution for me is to get a second monitor.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So, like, to get into your mind and just to go through your thought process is great. But my next question is, like, how are you able to freeze time? Because all the things you're doing, like, I think that's probably the kind of, from what you say, I think I gather that you know all the cards, right? I think that's the key. And I think that's one of my disadvantages. I'm still learning some of the cards and their abilities, but I understand from what you're saying, you just know the cards, and once you put yours in, what is likely to be coming. So, like, I was like, that was my next question, is like, Darkest Nights after Splinterfest was talking to Virus, he just realized that, there's good players and there's the students of the game, and that's what you are. Right?
Well, thank you. I'm trying to be, and I think, with, like I said earlier, with the Chaos Legion, at least that's a small enough set where if you're doing, it's been out for what, 8 or 9 months. So just playing with it day in and day out, you just kind of become familiar with the cards. So yeah, thank you for that compliment.
Yeah, I can't believe you were granted and the nickname UnitMaster was bestowed upon you. I don't know where that came from, man. So you hit something on the head a few minutes ago. That water is kind of the primary suggestion for new players, and I think you're absolutely right. Not only because Kelia and the team that you typically see Demon Shark, Flying Squid, Deep Lurker with the Wave Brood in the back, and there's kind of a flurry of other cards, whether you need to heal or triage or cleanse, but also the pure versatility of Kelia and that team at the lower mana matches is really where I think Kelia shines. That extra armor, and I think you're going to be at an even bigger advantage with Lux Vega coming in, bringing that speed, health, and one extra HP on the or one extra shield to any of your lineups. Lux Vega is going to shake it up in a big way, I think, for folks. But would you mind talking through? And let me back up one quick second. It's my thought process that when you see a 12 to 15 mana cap for a match, there's kind of a key core lineup that kind of flashes through your mind for each splinter, and that's really going to be dictated based upon rule set. Is that kind of how you approach things? Is what is the mana cap? What is the available splinter? And boom, you've got a lineup in mind of the same 2, 3, 4 core monsters for each splinter.
For most of them, yes. Especially almost any mana level other than maybe 99 mana, where I'm more likely going dragon. Pretty much any mana level, I'm going right to water. And so, yeah, with the 12 mana, especially Chaos Legion only, but even without, with adding in some of the other cards in Modern, with 12, 13, even up to 15 mana, like water, I pretty much have the main cards you're going to need, and the lineup's pretty memorized. And the low mana earth, I'll say, is maybe quote unquote solved, as far as you kind of see. I don't have a lot of those cards, but you kind of see the same lineup where it's Failed Summoner and then Epona, Queen Mycelia, and there's one or two others. It's pinned in our Discord, but it's exact same low mana earth lineup you see every time. So yeah, I think a lot of them, they really are, I don't want to say solved, but it's definitely a good place to start, where as a newer player, and especially as an experienced player, you ought to know, okay, 13 mana with these splinters available, this is the optimum lineup or close to it.
Yeah, I think so. Like for you personally, so we're going to talk about like the 12 and 15 mana and kind of listen to our thoughts on that. So, like, is there any particular rule set for like 12, 15 mana where you are still trying to work it out? Is there any one of those that you have difficulty with?
Yeah, I would say the fire one, if it's like fire only, that's a pretty tricky one. As far as what to play with 12 mana. Even earth is, I don't really have a strong counter for that, the Failed Summoner Epona combo. So I know what that optimum lineup is. I don't rent or have all those cards. I'd say the more obvious ones for me that are a little easier is going to be water, death, dragon. Dragon, you're kind of tacking on top of one of those others, but water, death, and life.
Can we talk through? So we've kind of talked through the key water cards for those lower mana matches. So up front, it's either Zenith Monk or the Cephalopod.
So so the one we were talking about earlier was specific to like a poison match, where I was wanting that. I was thinking that heal would be critical. But typically, if it's a 12 or a 13 mana, I'm going to throw Chaos Agent in front. And then say if it's 12 mana, I'll go Chaos Agent front. And then I'll go maybe Hardy Stonefish. And then Torrent Fiend.
I just did that same combination with Ben just before we joined the podcast, and I did it because you sent me something. So yeah.
And then I'll go the 2 mana guys. So Igor and Zenith. So you're filling up all 6 spots. Now, and this is specific to, say, Chaos Legion only. If you're playing a Chaos Legion only, maybe tournament or brawl match. So that's like a perfect 12 mana. If you have 13 mana, I'll drop like Hardy Stonefish and put in the Angelic Mandarin there, the 3 mana. So you'll have like a 1 mana, 0 mana, a 3/2/2. And so that kind of puts out a lot of damage. Now the thing is, once you get into, if it's not Chaos Legion only, there's the Pelacor Bandit and the Uraeus. So then you start looking at, for 6 mana, you're getting, if we're talking diamond, you're getting 7 damage, because you're getting the Pelacor doing 4 and Uraeus doing 3 plus poison. So a lot of times you can't just throw that same 13 or 12 mana combo out if the reward cards are in there, because you're going to get kind of a race to see, okay, who's going to pick off. Are they going to pick off your archers in the back before you get their tanks in the front and get their sneak to the front? So I will say, when you get into maybe say 14, 15 mana, then the Cruel Cephalopod, like you were talking about earlier, is a great like 3 mana tank to throw on the front. So maybe you'll go like, I might even do something like Cruel Cephalopod, and then, Pellicor Bandit, Uraeus, and then Sneak Protection in the back. So you throw the Torrent Fiend and then Chaos Agent in the very back. So you're trying to slow down. You're most likely going to be facing a very similar lineup. So you're trying to slow down their sneak attack coming behind.
Yeah, I think definitely, like, after you sent me that battle with no, actually you beat me. You didn't send him, you beat me with that lineup, right?
Yeah.
And because I wasn't expecting it at all, like, because for me, just my monkey brain was just like throw the Cephalopod at the front and then just have the healer, the guardian, and the triage at the back. But yeah, I think, and also you got me with similar lineup because like I played Death, I think, with Curse Windaku, and with that lineup, you just get through him just like, because if he wasn't there, right, he's like gone within the first round. Like, you can really do some serious damage. I think it's like pretty similar to the one I did to you before, Ben.
Yeah, we can skip over that. That's all right.
And a lot of those things you just learn by jumping in and playing the tournaments and playing against good players. And I learned that lineup. If you look at my post history in Discord, I think I posted, 2 or 3 times I got killed by that lineup. It's the Chaos Agent, Stonefish, Fiend, the Mandarin, Igor, and Zenith. And it's just, that's the 12, 13 mana lineup that all the best players are playing in Chaos Legion only. So if you don't know that, you're not studying the game, and you're a step behind, because it's out there and it's automatic. If I see 12, 13 mana and water, that's the lineup I plug in. Again, it's a lot more simplified in Chaos Legion only. It gets a little more complexity, but yeah, you just, everybody thinks, oh, like 15 mana, I'm gonna go Death and throw Cursed Windeku and maybe the Weirding Warrior or the magic, the three mana magic guy. I can't remember his name, but with the life leech, and they'll throw that in there, but it just doesn't do enough damage.
The sapper.
Yeah, the life sapper. But it doesn't do enough damage compared to the water. Igor's doing 3 damage, Zenith Archer's doing 2, and the Mandarin's doing 2. So you've got 7 damage you're hitting Windeku with, that has no shields.
Well, and it's important to call out that the stun is a tremendous factor there. Also, you're going to completely eliminate the chance of landing 1 stun. The Windeku's out round 2, right?
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, you've got the range monster to the front. When in a best case scenario, the Windeku and the Weirding Warrior were able to take out the Chaos Agent, right? And you've still got 3 attackers sitting waiting in the wings to knock them out.
Yeah, exactly. And I found, I don't know there's a hard and fast rule, but I'm seeing a trend that generally in these lower, even in the lowest mana matches, you really, whenever you can, you want to fill every spot, right? So the difference between playing, a 6 mana Windeku versus 3 cards for 2 mana, assuming, hopefully they're all doing something useful, attacking or maybe absorbing damage. It's just a big difference. Whenever I lose a low mana match, it's usually I'm maybe only using 2, 3, 4 guys, and I'm always facing somebody put 6 monsters out there. So I think that's, if I get stuck or confused even on a low mana rule set, I just go, I'll keep reconfiguring the deck. Okay, how can I best utilize having somebody in every spot? Because even if it's only 1 health, or maybe it's with Kellius, you get 1 health and 1 shield, that could be absorbing maybe it's a guy that's doing 5 damage, right? And that whole attack is wasted on one shield. So I think it's really critical to try to fill every spot just to absorb those extra attacks.
Yeah, I think you make a great point about if you're not following these players, you will be a step behind. But I just get the feeling like these players are just even a step in front as well. Like they're just they're always working out their strategies. But that's why I kind of wish there was like a training mode or training like arena where you could like actually test out these strategies.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I like to have the splintertools.io. If I lose, especially if I lose a match, I like to throw it in there and I just start moving cards around. I think we had talked about this a little bit earlier, but there's I think 3 kinds of losses. There's one where you just really you just picked a horrible team and you got beat. There's another one where maybe you picked a good team, but it just wasn't the right counter, or maybe it was RNG. And then there's a third loss, which is, okay, I just don't have those cards. Like it doesn't matter what I played, I'm never beating my opponent. So when I lose, I like to throw it up on the Splinter tools and figure out, okay, what kind of loss was it? And if I can at least eliminate all the losses where I just really picked a horrible team or didn't know what I was doing, that's what I'm trying to eliminate. And I think Splinter Tools is a great free tool because you can just hop on the website, plug in your in-game name, and it brings up all your last battles. You can click on it and start moving around. And that really advanced my game when I first started. My first 3-4 months into it was just every loss I'd go in there and just start moving cards around and go, okay, what could I have done to beat this? And that really helped me go, oh, okay, a lot of light bulb moments of realizing how critical it is just placing your monster in one spot. Could be the exact same lineup, you just put one guy in the wrong spot and now you've lost. And so learning the nuance of that. I do wish there were better tools available where you could analyze multiple lineups. So okay, let me put in 10 lineups and how do these all fare against each other. So I think that would be even like you said, maybe tutorials and maybe a challenge modes and different guides. But I think if there was some way to really analyze various cards against each other and how they fare, I think it would help new players and even help experienced players, and probably even help us. I don't want to dive into the whole bot discussion, but even maybe give you ways to strategize against maybe beating bots or beating these really good players.
Yeah. I kind of. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, man.
No, I just wish you could just like key in, 12, 12 mana battle, poison, and then something could come up, and then you just, the computer just brings up the lineup, and then you just like practice.
Sounds like you're talking about getting an Archmage.
No, I mean, I want to play against it personally as a human, but I just would like to just play against a computer and like in the specific, like choose my specific rule set and mana cap.
Yeah, that feels like where the next few iterations of in-game challenges should go. Right. I really struggle with 15 mana matches with, A, B, and C splinters available under this particular set of rules. And then just generate the match based upon that versus the ideal lineup put together by the computer. That would be fantastic. And that's where I hope challenges would go. That would really give us the chance to kind of take our game to the next level without sacrificing precious rating points or, without the fear of losing those rating points for putting out a stupid test run lineup, right?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I would love to see them add something like that for practicing with guild mates and just sharpening your skills to be able to choose. Okay, let's practice some 12 mana poison matches with fire or whatever splinter. That's a great idea.
Because as soon as you have that match, you can use splinter tools, but then you're straight onto like a 99 mana. So you kind of, I don't know, by the time you kind of get that similar scenario, I don't know. Anyway, for my brain, I'm thinking it doesn't really work like that. Memory.
So UnitMaster, let's jump back into kind of key lineups. So speaking specifically to Chaos Legion stuff, and I think that is a great place to start for the newer players, at least for the next 4 or 5 months. It looks like the pack burn is going to be voted as approved. So the timer is ticking on cheap Chaos Legion cards. And you and I were talking earlier about this. I feel like Chaos Legion is being slept on in a big way. I feel like it's a huge deck. There's a lot of really, really great cards, and they're available for very affordable prices compared to peanuts compared to previous editions. So looking at Chaos Legion only, that water ideal optimum lineup, is there a particular rule set? So we've talked about poison, we've talked about most other rule sets. Is there another rule set that you would avoid water when it's available for that particular lineup?
Well, that lineup, say if there's no, the broken arrows, when there's no ranged attack, then you've really got to start thinking, how are you gonna approach that? So, you might be more likely to put in, like you said earlier, the Cruel Cephalopod, and maybe you're gonna go. A lot of the low mana good cards are archers. I think if you get into that low mana, it might be, maybe you go death with Windeku and the Silent Shaw that can do the sneak attacks, or maybe you'd go water with the Cruel Cephalopod in front, and maybe you can throw in Demon Shark or something. But again, typically I will just that's a tough question, because I don't think that specific rule set comes up a lot for me. But yeah, if you would have the 12 mana without any of your range units, that makes it a pretty tricky. And are you thinking Chaos Legion only for water, or just kind of any splinter?
Yeah, I think just general Chaos Legion. So water and others being taken into consideration.
Yeah, I think I would generally probably lean. I know death is a really strong, 15, 16 mana and under. So I would probably do some sort of rule set where there's no range allowed. If you're going, Thaddeus, so he's countering magic, because you're really only going to be facing, melee damage or magic. So if you go Thaddeus, you're reducing any incoming magic, and then when Deku's got the thorns, that's hurting any melee damage. And then I'd throw in the probably Silent Shaw. Actually, I think it might have been against one of you, but one of the tournament matches today, it was a low mana and water wasn't available, and I tried something a little different. I put the Crypt Beetle in front. So I did Crypt Beetle, and then Weirding Warrior, Zenith Monk, or Zenith Archer, and then I put the 2 single manas in the back. So I think I did Chaos Agent and the Fiend, because that was another one where I thought, okay, I'm gonna go Windeku. It was a 12 mana, so I'm gonna go Windeku and then Weirding Warrior to amplify. I'm like, well, he's probably gonna do the exact same thing. So is there any way to beat this? So I tried that lineup. I haven't seen if my opponent put in his team yet to see how it did, but I think they're probably going to go Windeku with a 2 mana archer, maybe like the Fiend in the very front. I think my lineup will beat that. But if they play like, say, maybe Crypt Beetle and then the Life Sapper, it'll bypass Crypt Beetle's shield, and they'll probably win. So, but yeah, so I think that's probably the trickiest one would be if it's anything without arrows, I'd probably go death. I'm trying to think what, if other than that, you might go, it kind of goes against the principle of trying to fill every spot, but you might do something like Kelia with the the Antoid Platoon, or the Zenith Monk for the healing, and then maybe you're that 5 mana guy that has the reach, or maybe the 10-use striker to hit in the back. And then water, or not water, sorry, earth is a little bit tricky because all the magic guys don't do a ton of damage, even with the obsidian boosting them, and they've got low health and low attack, right? So if you turn on that one and the neutrals, so you could do, at the most you can do maybe, right? So like, say, look at Goblin Psychic there. You could go Obsidian for 4, Goblin Psychic maybe for 6. There you're at 10, so you only have 2 left. So you could maybe throw in like an Acid Shooter or something. But for Earth, I really like to play that Hill Giant because you've got the 3 mana. If you're at max level, the 9 health. So he kind of absorbs quite a bit of attack.
That's stun.
Yeah, the stun, if he lands it, and if you can get in maybe Mycelia and then Zenith Archer or something like that. And again, that would be something where if water's not available. But that's I think that's one of the common ones that I'll see up front is that Hill Giant, because for 3 mana to get 9 health and stun, it's a really strong card.
So I assume that sorry, Wesclaw, I assume that Lux Vega is going to immediately be. Actually, I'm not sure that they're going to be, because she's a lot like Blight, right? She'll be a promo card. So they'll both have the Chaos Legion borders, and they should be playable in these Chaos Legion only tournaments, but they're not going to be, at least for now. Who knows if we'll get that before the end of Chaos Legion. But do you foresee yourself choosing Vega over Kelia for the health?
In the water, I'm not sure. In water, I have to see how that plays out and how much that extra health helps. If you're planning on playing a healing lineup, like one of my favorite lineups is to throw, Wave Brood in the back and then use the Mandarin and the Spirit. I think it's a Spirit Fiend, the 3 mana legendary that they both have triads. So you've got
Hoarder.
Hoarder. Yeah.
So you're doing double heal to Wave Brood and back. So in a case like that, I think healing is like 1/3 or 1/4 of your total health. So every extra health you can get boosted will, once you hit a certain limit, it increases the amount you're healing. So I haven't really looked at the math, like if using Lux Vega, say if you throw in maybe Wave Brood, and then if you had at your tank the Bakira that gives another health boost to everybody, you're increasing your base health by 2. That could increase the double healing by quite a bit. So I could see it possibly being useful in water. I think where it's going to really make cards strong is Death, because Death has there's a lot of good lineups where I go through the exercise of, oh yeah, I want to play this, but what beats it? And I always know, okay, Demon Shark is going to be out there. It's going to one hit all my best guys, right? Like Death has that 3 mana archer that does 4 damage with poison. I think he's got like 3 health. So even though he's like
trampled,
a super great unit for the mana.
Soul Strangler.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just said trample fodder, man. Yeah, Demon Shark is just going to plow through that. Yeah.
But to be able to throw Lux in there and know that, okay, now I've got 1 shield and I can absorb these opportunity attacks. I think it's going to be a game changer for Death and for some of the dragon ones, and even Earth, where maybe you don't want to really waste a 4 mana on Queen Mycelia for the extra shields. So you can throw in Lux Vega there.
Yeah, I was just wondering as well with, now you mentioned that as well, like I kind of like to not play Magic when I do use Obsidian for the low manas, mixed results. Right. But yeah, I wonder with Lux, with that shield and the extra speed, right? So I'm just wondering how that will play out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really strong card because, like you, I'm the same way. A lot of times I'm not wanting to play Obsidian. I want to play maybe, Grund up front and, a couple of couple of the stronger archers, or maybe even, um, the opportunity guy, the Venari.
Yeah, Vanilla Scouts.
Venari Scout, and some of those where you'd like to not necessarily play a magic heavy lineup, but it's just you have no defense against Demon Shark and some of those quick opportunities that come in, one or two hit and you're done.
Yeah, even Isa, right? If you get a nice shield on her as well and bit more speed.
Yeah, more speed, and then she can hold up against, that she'll take, a sneak attack a little longer to get through the back lineup. So yeah, I do think it's going to be a game changer for Death and Earth, especially for newer players that we weren't around. At least me, wasn't around to pick up Mylor for Earth or some of these other stronger summoners.
Or even these new players that were around to pick up very expensive $15 BCX Milos.
Right.
Like me.
Awesome, guys. Well, is there any other? So I think we've kind of narrowed in on a couple of key lineups for 12 to 15. There was one other one that is one of my personal favorites, and it's the life dragon play. And I think you sent that through, and you were kind of surprised as you hadn't seen it before. Do you remember what the exact lineup was?
Yeah, that was a brutal one. I don't remember. I'll see if I can pull up the link, but I know he had the fiend with the speed boost. He had the 2-mana dragon archer that has the speed boost. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the name.
The assassin.
Yeah, the Naga assassin.
Yep.
So he had that, and of course the Pelacor conjurer up front. That's an amazing 2-mana tank.
And the speed swing with such a small mana cost on that lineup is that's huge bang for your buck, right?
Yeah, it's so huge, and it's anytime you can get the speed boost, it's so huge. I found the lineup here that I had sent you, and it's you've got the Pelacor conjurer tank. Oh, because it was a blast rule set. So 13 mana blast with no sneak. And so it was Pelacor Conjurer up front. And then he had the Kinjo with the blast, the reflection shield there. And then he had the Torrent, not the Torrent Fiend, but the Fiend right behind it with the speed boost and Chaos Agent. And then the 2 mana, the Celestial Harpy, and then the Naga Assassin in the back. So he's got, with the Dragon Summoner, he's doing a -1 speed, and then he's got the Kinjo slowing me down, and then he has the 2 speed boost. So, and I thought I had a super fast lineup because I played, Yatsek, I had Chaos Agent in front, I had Kinjo. Again, just we're both trying to absorb the blast damage. But yeah, it just shredded right through my lineup. So that's a 13 mana. I don't even know, that probably might have even beat the water lineup I would have done. It's hard to say, but that's definitely like a 12 to 13 mana. That was a really strong combo.
Did you play Jessic? Did you say?
I did, because it was blast and there was no water. So I said, okay, even though it's only 13 mana, I really want to I'm going to try to overwhelm them with speed.
And the scatter shot is so brilliant with blast rule sets. I think it's worth the extra couple of mana to get the blast piercing, right? Plus the speed.
Right.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before. I think a couple of months ago, Waska and I kind of picked apart the previous rewards edition and picked our favorites for kind of longevity. And I think this was just after Wraith came out, and Pelacor Conjurer. I can't believe that card is still just sitting there at such a low price. I think the best tank in the game for most mana matches. I love playing Wraith with the Conjurer, uh, even in bigger mana matches, and I'll stack up the kind of the back ends. Yeah, great lineup that you ran up against, and now you got another little tool in your belt there.
So
Yeah,
do you play Conjurer? Sorry, UnitMaster. Do you play? Because I always want to play Conjurer, but I always opt for Almo, and I haven't got Almo Magic Reflect. So would you prefer to play Conjurer as opposed to Almo because it'll give you more mana from the back?
It depends on the rule set, but I think you can't go wrong with the Conjurer. I think the Divine Shield plus the Void Armor plus the Phase plus flying plus the Magic Reflect. That guy's his toolkit just goes on and 8 health to go on with that. So if you can get like a Conjurer, if it's somewhat limited mana, I would choose Conjurer and Adelaide. That's my combo over Almo. So for 2 mana more than Almo, I would go Adelaide and Conjurer for the repair and the speed boost and the resurrect.
and also it's got phase too, so it can be dodging.
And the phase. And the phase.
I think it's like it's our modern day failed summoner. Failed summoner is one of those cards I just so wish that I had max, because every time you run into it, it's got the demoralize and it's got magic reflect. It just got everything for 2 mana, and I think once it runs out of circulation, players that come in later are just gonna, when they face that card, they're just gonna cringe.
Yeah,
it's a great play, man.
I wonder if Conjurer were to be released today. I don't know. Like, it just feels 2 mana sounds crazy. But like it could be a 6, right? It could be for all it does, like for the higher levels. Maybe because it's at the lower levels, it doesn't do so much. But
yeah, I
think it's purely tank, right? Like there's no attack. Like its attack is its defense.
And one thing I like about the strategy is I think they're really, a lot of the things that they do are really subtle. Like you don't even necessarily realize all the capabilities of these cards until you start either playing them or run into them being used against you, right?
Hopefully
a lot of them,
the former. Hopefully the former.
For example, a brutal lineup to run into is when you see, like, say, Jotun Magnor. But if you throw in, they built the perfect counter to that. If you have water, Jin Oceanus and Tidebiter, because now Magnor is doing 1 damage to Oceanus and the blast is doing nothing. So a lot of these cards that there's a lot of nuance, and a lot of these cards are built for really specific situations or really specific counters. And so when you start seeing them used, it's like, wow, that's a really powerful ability, like depending on what league you're in. Like the force field that Oceanus has and Mycelic Slip Spawn, as you start getting into gold and diamond and people are running these lineups with cards that are doing 5 or 6 damage, and all of a sudden you start hitting force field and you're doing 1 damage, it's just, you're like, oh, I had the perfect lineup, but you're just doing nothing. And so I think that's what these cards, like even Pelacor Conjurer, it's a really subtle card for only 2 mana that does so much. And I think that's what I really like about this game, between all the different mana levels and rule sets. Are just so many nuanced ways to play things, and to finding new ways to use cards, and cards that might not be meta right now, they could release any type of summoner or other card that all of a sudden activates them and makes them more useful. I think we've talked a lot in the YGG Discord. I feel like the recharge monsters are, they're always the cheapest on the market. They're kind of, other than maybe Uriel, they're kind of garbage. And I could see them maybe coming up with a summoner or something that, hey, your recharge guys, start charge. So maybe they attack on the first round or something like that. So you just
Mm,
never know what, a card that might seem useless now all of a sudden can become real powerful with the right combinations.
yeah. How have you found the integration of Rift Watchers into your CLL deck?
Oh man, it's interesting because so when they, it's always when a first set gets released, you're kind of hesitant. You want to buy everything, but prices should come down. So I actually bought, I think day one or day two, I bought a bunch of the legendaries so I leveled them up to gold level. And then I bought like a few singles of the commons. I'm like, oh, they're, 10 cents, they're going to come down. I'm not going to buy too many of these. So I didn't buy that many of them, but I do have let me look up the names of them just so I'm not fumbling through them. But I bought a couple of legendaries. So the Runemancer Kai, I got to level 3, and Agor Longtail, I got him up to level 3, so he does the healing. I only got Lurker up to level 2, so I'm eyeballing that one because I want to get that one up to max where it has the thorns. I think the Rift Watchers is a good example of just the subtlety and how they make adjustments to the strategy. So now you already have like a lot of meta cards from Untamed and Chaos Legion that are taunt, right? So taunt is just such a strong skill because you can kind of control the battle by using taunt. And so you can see them releasing, Yasik with the scatter shot, the new scatter shot, long to some of the monsters in Chaos Legion. And now with Rift Watchers, it's Fury. That's, it's a direct counter to all these taunt monsters. So I think that the Runemancer Kai, especially with having the life leech and then doing double damage to taunt monsters. So I knew, okay, I want to at least get these ones at least to gold level. Well, then I made the mistake of looking at Splinterlands exchange and how much they were renting for. So I started renting them out for 300 DEC a day. So I actually I haven't used them a lot because I've been renting them out so much. But I did pull them off of rent for some tournaments and for the tier 3 brawls that we're doing.
Okay.
So a long-winded answer to your question is I think there's a lot of great cards in there. Also, a lot of them are high mana, so they're mostly coming into play if you're getting, say 50 mana or above. And when I cringe when I see a lot of them coming against me. I think there's some really good cards, but I don't have a lot of them, and I'm not utilizing in my lineups most of the time. Other than that, the Runemancer Kai, I'm throwing into every lineup I can, and I'm also finding the last couple days I've been running into some people running Agor Longtail, which is the dragon that does magic melee, taunt. It's got void armor and it heals. And so I've seen people running that with Oshur behind and say River Hellendale or Adelaide Brightwings. They're doing either healing, plus armor repair and then a double resurrect. And so I just got crushed against that lineup a couple times. So I've actually run it a couple times today, and it's been really, both times I thought, oh, I'm going to lose this, and it got 2 resurrects and ended up
Wow.
winning. So I think those are going to be some strong cards that I'm hoping to get as many of them max as I can.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch the market response to Rift Watchers. The summoners is where I've seen kind of the biggest price swings. It seems like the market will latch on to one particular summoner and all of a sudden it will spike. Or my boy Dallin, he's been continually poo-pooed for the last month or so. He's fallen below $3. I think that's one of those abilities where I feel like cripple, if it's used properly. I love to run it in like Divine Shield or Armored Up, and with some poison from somebody like the Soul Strangler or Uraeus. But for the most part, outside of the summoners, it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of movement on any of the prices. And I wonder what's your take, UnitMaster? Are you still kind of waiting for for some dips, or what's your thoughts on how the market's going to move forward with Rift Watchers?
Yeah, I think with the way SPS has dropped and just how few packs have sold and been opened, I think a lot of people have been waiting for these airdrop cards before they start opening packs. And just not a lot of packs are selling, so they may never come down in price. It may just be a matter of, hey, we got to bite the bullet and just pay up if you really want the card. I'm not convinced there's going to be a serious drop. So I've been a little more selective in the buying and also trying to see how are they utilized. So I think if there's not any big drop, which I don't anticipate unless maybe SPS gets a big spike and people start buying them more. But with SPS down as low as it is, I don't see a lot of people wanting to sell off their SPS to get these packs. So I'm just kind of eyeballing. There's some like the Corsair Bosun, the guy with the reflection shield and the cleanse, that he's the 10 mana life. I think that would be a great card to have. I wish I bought like 5 or 6 of them when they were 50 cents. And I thought, I'll buy some more when they come down. And now they're a couple days ago, they were $2. I think they dropped down to like $1.20. But yeah, I don't think the prices are going to come way down on them anytime soon. So I'm just kind of being more selective on if and when I'll buy them.
Yeah, I was thinking the biggest driver for prices on Rift Watchers to move down was going to be that DEC proposal. And since that got declined in pretty significant fashion, I think these prices are probably going to be here to stay until we see SPS pump a little bit and folks are more willing to part ways with, right now it's upwards of 100 something SPS per pack, which is that's a brutal swap. It's probably better to bring in fiat and purchase those cards off the market than it is to roll the dice with packs. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Yes, especially if you can, wait and buy. I don't think you need every card in Rift Watchers to be competitive. So if you can wait, maybe someone's selling. I should have pulled the trigger on it the other day, but somebody had like a max Queen of Crows up for sale for like $50, which I thought was a pretty good. I should have grabbed it. But I think that will be the way to go, is maybe just wait till some of the whales that have combined a bunch of cards and maybe they start cycling packs or flipping cards. There might be chances to buy some maxed out cards for the cheaper BCX, rather than trying to pick off 2 or 3 cards a day at the lows, which is how I built my Chaos Legion deck. Was just checking, okay, we're at a low, we're at some lows for this card and buying 5 or 10 at a time as they're low, or just waiting until someone sells a max one for super cheap because they're just trying to dump it. But otherwise you can't, a lot of these cards, if you want 500 commons to max it out, you can't just go on and buy 500 commons at the low price because there's not enough liquidity. So you'd either have to put in bids on the market and just be patient. So yeah, I'm just kind of biding my time, waiting on Rift Watchers, hoping there's some good deals later on, but I'm not counting on it.
Yeah, until those packs start selling, there's just not going to be enough on the market to bring down the price, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, me personally, I'm just waiting like a sniper and just choosing. I've rented out a few now for that recent tournament, and I'm just playing around with them and seeing what works well. But I know Ben Bjangles has dipped his toe into the Rift Watcher market, so he's definitely the man to speak to about his cards, or about the top cards. Well, like we played before, right? And you did you take out my Lurker in one hit?
Yeah, so one of my favorite cards from Rift Watchers is the Rune Man. Oh, not the Rune Mancer. The what's his face? Runic Skyclaw, the dragon sniper. and he gets Giant Killer and Reflection Shield at the higher levels, and just one shot the lurker, and that was a beautiful thing. Never seen that before, but yeah, just completely took it out, and the match was history. But yeah, there's a few of those cards where if everything kind of lines up and clicks, they're total game changers. Yeah, Rift Watchers is a fun set.
I saw where you saying you wouldn't swap your Tarsa for the sorry, she's escaped my name. The Reds, the fire summoner, the Rift Watcher, Scargor, yeah. Is that right? You prefer Tarsa over her?
Me?
No, sorry, I was talking to UnitMaster.
Oh, I don't remember saying that. Maybe I think that might have been when they first came out. I think when they first showed them, I wasn't very impressed with it. But the more I'm seeing some of the top level players and people talking about it, I think it's actually a pretty strong summoner. So
okay. Oh, maybe I misread it in Discord.
I think when the first day they announced some of the stats, and I just said, I think Tarsa's better, but I didn't really I think it was just my knee-jerk reaction, but the more I've seen it played and talking to some of the top players in the YGG, a lot of them really like it better than Tarsa, because that Enrage is a pretty strong, especially if you combine it with maybe Coral Lurker that has the phase, it can be a really, really strong card.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh man, I could sit here and talk strategy and tactic all day with you, man. We'll definitely have to get you back on for a second round. But before we start wrapping up, Waskell, is there any other kind of final questions you wanna put for the people?
Yeah, no, I'm good, man. I've had all my questions answered, but yeah, like you, I could just sit around and powwow all day. I think it's just really good, right? You kind of just throw around ideas and listen to what people are using. I think it's really important. Like if you want to get better at the game, in Discord it's great, and to have that is fantastic. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything you'd like to say more, UnitMaster? Anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'm really glad you guys had me on. I know we had talked about maybe diving into brawls. I didn't know if you want to cover that today, or we've been on here for a little bit, so I'm fine. Whatever you guys want to do, but it's been great. I love talking strategy with both of you, and since you've been been involved in the guild and just sharing, DMs back and forth, it's been awesome.
Right.
Yeah, I think it feels like brawls is going to be a beast of its own. Maybe we park that for another conversation once guilds have kind of settled into their respective tiers a little bit. I think we're going to see a pretty significant shakeup when SPS comes in. So maybe some folks will pick apart some different strategies once they're kind of faced with some new phrase. There are some interesting phrase that come into the mix as you start to climb the tier ladder. And yeah, I think we could probably talk on that for a couple hours just by itself. So we'll definitely have to have you back for that one.
Yeah, that sounds great. And anyone that's listening, I encourage you to go back and listen to like the recent episodes of like Darkest Night and After Sound. Especially the Darkest Night episode, just really enjoyed your guys' talk with the strategy and the how he's buying the rewards cards, and just really really interesting person. So I just commend you guys on the podcast and the guest you're having on. It's really interesting.
Well, you're on that list, man. This has been a fun one, and I think the folks are going to respond in kind. A lot of gems that you put down there, and I think a lot of folks are going to leave this episode scratching their heads saying, "Oh shit, am I a level 1 thinker?" But yeah, man, shout out to you. We really appreciate you hopping on. This has been a long time coming, and we were looking forward to it. I think Waskell and I were talking off air a couple of times throughout the last week, like, how are we going to fit all this stuff in? There's so much meat and potatoes we want to get through. And I hope we did you justice, man. I know that there's, a ton of strategy in that brain of yours, and I hope we gave you a decent chance to kind of release that onto the platform for folks to pick up.
I think also with these new rule sets that are going to be introduced, we're going to have plenty to talk about in the coming weeks and months, right? They've just dropped these new 3 rule sets now, so I already feel like when I look at that, my mind is just thinking totally different. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, you are welcome on this podcast anytime. I always kind of think, I read this book by Napoleon Hill about how to get rich, and he just he just researched like all the greatest minds, like businessmen of the time, and I just kind of feel this is like just like a meeting of ideas, and I think it's really important as I move forward as a player, for sure. It's great.
That's the mastermind concept.
Yeah,
I think it's a great mastermind and talking strategy. I really enjoyed being on here with you.
Well, I'll be the first to say it's the first of many. We'll get you back on and bring more strategy and tactics to the good listeners of the People's Guild.
And for our listeners out there, we're going to change things up a little bit. We usually have our challenge at the end of the podcast, but we are going to change that, and you will be able to view that challenge, or hopefully there's going to be a couple of battles today. You will be able to view that content on YouTube. So
and on 3Speak.
And on 3Speak. So tune into that, because we will play the battle and discuss tactics and why we did that and why we probably shouldn't have done that. So thank you everyone for listening. You have been listening to
People's Guild.